success stories told by the people who lived them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, I got an extra special treat joining me in the Hit Lab today, especially for all of my baseball lovers out there. And look, man, I get it. You guys all know my love for the game of baseball. And before I'm done, yours will match mine. That's my promise to you, right? And we're taking another stab at earning that for you today. Folks, check it out. This guy joining me today needs no introduction. He is a former Major League Baseball great. He is a two-time world champion and a three-time member of the 30-30 Club. Folks, welcome Howard Johnson. How are we doing, baby?
Nick, I'm doing just fine. Thank you. Great studio. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Man, we got a lot to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Awesome. Well, dude, this is, I want to let everybody know, you're in Nashville now, right? Mm-hmm. And you are, there's a baseball club here that's doing a lot of great things in Middle Tennessee that bears your name. You're wearing the logos on your stuff that are watching us today, right? It's called HoJo Elite Baseball.
Yes, it is. And we've been around for about 6 or 7 years now. We are located out of the facility at Showtime Sports Academy.
Man, that's a great facility. It's right in the heart of Cool Springs.
Yep.
Right. And do you guys do, honestly, I haven't been in there in a little bit. Do you guys still do multiple sports and stuff like that? Or is it strictly baseball?
No, baseball is our primary sport that goes on, but we have a couple of fields in there. It's mostly baseball. There's some softball, but we get soccer in there, lacrosse, you name it. We get it all. It's pretty good.
Well, man, so how long have you been in Nashville?
Well, my wife and I moved up here, probably about 10 or 11 years ago. We lived over in East Nashville area. Mm-hmm. And when long after the kids started coming, we moved up here to begin with because of my oldest daughter. Her husband had a job up here, and they started having grandkids. So they started having kids, and my wife and I decided to make the big move up here from Florida. So we're glad to be up here.
There's a lot of people moving here from Cali these days, but I don't know as much about Florida. Florida's a great place to live, right? Yeah. So I know I got buddies down there that are always telling me how warm it is this time of year down there when we're dealing with the cold.
Yeah. I spend the winter time down there quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I'm going back tomorrow, so I'm going back to that warm weather, but I'm going to be back up next week.
Well, bring some back with you when you come.
I'll do my best, man. I'll try. I'll do my best.
Well, man, so tell me a little bit about the family life. So how many kids do you have, and how many, you got 7 grandkids, I wrote down.
7 grandkids, 3 kids. My son is my middle child. He runs Showtime. And, my oldest daughter, Shannon, they live in East Nashville, and she's a figure skating coach. So she's been at that now for several years and does very well with that. And then my youngest daughter, Kayla, they live up in Madison, and she works for UBS.
Got it. Man, well, that's awesome. And all of them are here in Nashville.
They're all in Nashville. It was Shannon first, then Glenn, and then Kayla. And they've all married great people here and settled down nicely. Each have 2 kids, except for my son now is third. Mm-hmm. So it's been fun to watch these kids grow up, my grandkids grow up, and kind of settle in here, make roots, and they absolutely love it up here. Man,
well, one of my goals today is just being so involved in Nashville baseball on the amateur level, man. Yep. It's like what your organization has done has made a very big impact here. Especially, my son's 14, but we've been playing against you guys across the diamond for the last, since he was as old as I can remember, as young as I can remember. I've been his coach the whole time, and the great looking unis, great looking logos. I love it, man. It's fantastic. Well,
I appreciate it. It's something that we really enjoy doing. I mean, teaching kids and, working on the game and trying to develop, young kids so that they can play their middle school team or high school team, whatever. And then beyond, that's kind of what the goal is, just to provide, as much as we can to them with quality coaching, and just being there, available. And that's kind of what we are about. We've got good coaches there. guys that know what they're talking about. We're certain of that, and we try to maintain a level and a culture over there that's second to none. So we're doing our best.
I'd say you're doing a pretty dang good job, if I don't say so myself, man.
Well, I appreciate it. We love our kids, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So, dude, you played in a one of the greatest eras of Major League Baseball, and I'm just, even when I was in working my way through the minor leagues in the early 2000s. Knowing what we know now about just the technical parts of the game, about the swing analytics and how to use shoulder and hip separation to create more velocity and so many, we didn't even talk about that back then. You know what I'm saying? It's such a different game. There was, when you look back at the guys like you that just had power that just kind of didn't match what you were seeing from everybody else, because you guys just did some things naturally. So when we know what we know today, and then what you did as a player, did you know that you were doing all those things so well, or did it just kind of happen?
No, not at all. I think the key word back in the day was bat speed. That you have to create that to have a chance to play at any level higher than, amateur baseball. The higher the level you go, the more bat speed you need. And so, as a minor league guy, you come into the system. I was with Detroit. That's how I came up with the Tigers. And you come up, and you kind of learn what kind of bat speed you need, if you have it or you don't. And if you don't, you got to figure out ways to improve, to get stronger, quicker, get the barrel from A to B as quickly as you can. And then as I got older, I got smarter and kind of learned more things about my swing. Never really tried to hit the ball out of the ballpark. And that's something that, I still believe in. I don't think that guys should go up there with that intention. I think bat speed, getting a good pitch to hit, and being able to drive the ball in the middle of the field is always going to be something that's popular. And I think that, home runs are almost accidents. They're balls you just miss, line drives you just miss. So I try to teach the game in that regard, and not always go for the big pump. A lot of kids come in and they'll want that. They're seeking that, but that's not for everybody. And that's not something that you can just teach somebody to do, because every kid will tell you, I want to hit the ball out. I want to do this. I want to do that. That's great. But that doesn't necessarily mean what power means in a baseball swing. Power is exit velocity, hitting the ball hard, hitting the ball in the gap. Balls are going to run to the fence, those kind of things. Like I say, it was such a different game back then. Guys were built different. You were a combination of both speed and power. We mentioned the video game, the RBI baseball. RBI baseball,
dude. You were unstoppable in that game. It was such a cool thing.
Yeah. So I've heard that. I hear that a lot. To be honest with you, it's out of nowhere, because I never had the game, so I didn't really play it, but that's pretty cool to know that that's how you're known for. Absolutely. And I want to, my son, we like to show him, the stuff from our childhood and everything else. And so he's been, he knows about Bo Jackson and that was the Tecmo Bowl game where Bo was unstoppable in that game, and so on and so forth. It's just, I don't know, man, it's a dream of mine was always to be on a poster, on a baseball card, play on TV, or be in a video game. You know what I mean? And to have that up there. And back then it was different, but now they look like, they look just like the real players. Back then it was, avatars that kind of, I looked better on the avatar. I'll throw that out there.
Oh man. Well, we talk a lot about teammates here. I say that friends come and go, but teammates are forever.
Correct. Yep.
And, even the guys that I haven't seen 20 years that we shared a locker room with, we always pick up right back where we left off. You know what I mean? So you had some unbelievable teammates, no doubt. Do you guys still stay in touch? And
Oh yeah. We do things, especially in New York, we do things quite a bit. There's always a show, or there's always something planned, either through the Mets organization or privately. There's always something going on. And all the guys, we see each other at Mets fantasy camp. That's in November down in Florida. It's a lot of fun. So we get to catch up a lot then. And so the guys never really feel like they're far away from each other. And that's a nice little setup that, we can communicate and kind of be in touch and pick up the phone or shoot a text or whatever to somebody and not feel awkward that you haven't talked to them in a while. We're just a family. How it is.
That's right. One of the best teammates, I had two teammates that always really stuck out to me, and it's not that like all of them weren't great, but there were two guys that I've told stories about on here. One guy was named Jimmy Hurst, and he had like 300 minor league home runs, played in Japan, had a little big league time. And another one was an older catcher that I actually backed up for a couple years. They were the best teammates for me because of not just the patience that they showed with me, but the accountability that they created.
Yes.
I was just a young dude I didn't understand it was a business.
Yeah.
I was just playing and happy to be there. And they were great. What were some of some teammates that really stuck out to you over the years and kind of why?
Wow. Well, I came up with the Tigers. So when I first got to Major League camp, there was a guy named Enos Cabell who played for a number of years with Houston. Quite a good player. Played third base. He could play the outfield. He could pinch hit. He was a good ball player. And he kind of took me under his wing and showed me a lot of things. Darrell Evans showed me a lot of things. I talked to Alan Trammell quite a bit. Couldn't talk to Gibby. Gibby was a little tough, man. Kirk Gibson. He was I had a locker next to him in Detroit, and it was a little difficult, but I just loved the intensity. And I tried to pattern myself after that. I wanted to be that like into the game every night.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that I wasn't, but I think as a young player, you're always, you should be actually searching out the best guys on your team that you can, take things from, find the guys who want to talk and then talk to them and ask them questions. That's the thing. Those guys, the guys that I mentioned, they always were there with an answer. So if I had a problem or a question, didn't know how to navigate it, I was just like you. I didn't know what Major League was all about. And you just kind of like feel your way through it. But you just, one thing is, my dad always told me, if you want to be good at something, find out the best at it, hang around those guys. And so regardless of what it is.
That's right.
And that's kind of my motto when I was the younger kid.
That's we talk about that a lot around here as well. In proximity, we talk about it all the time and how important that it is.
Yep.
And I want to stay there for just a minute because there's been some folks that have been on the show or that I've just mentioned multiple times about how big of an impact they had on me as a man, a father, and a businessman, and how a previous business life that we had, especially when we were in the hospitality industry, running nightclubs and things like that and owning them, like that was probably like my worst time as a person just because of the people I was around all the time.
Yeah.
And, it kind of sucks you in a little bit. When my son, if he's getting in trouble and there's a kid that gets in trouble, he's always getting in trouble with you, say, don't hang out with that person.
That's right.
But as adults, we don't always do that. We don't always do that. What advice would you have as far as obviously when you got to pick your friends carefully, you know, and
true.
But what advice would you have for young men and women that are coming up, especially as they get into their adult life and they're no longer in school with classmates and so on and so forth? Because obviously it probably had a huge impact on you, right?
100%. Well, that's well stated. I think you have to have the right leadership in your life. My dad's still alive. He was very instrumental in developing the way I thought about the game. Studied the game, tried to watch players, and you have to make things priority. You have to prioritize things in your life. If you want to be good at something, you have to make that a priority. You have to seek out where the advice is. How can I get better? If you're not sure about that, you have to ask.
Yeah. And
sometimes that's hard to do. We all have pride. We don't want to ask, but you have to ask, and you have to find out for yourself sometimes. When you're a kid in high school, it's very easy to get let off the straight and narrow, because, your friends are your friends, and you're going to do stuff off the field that you aren't proud of or you shouldn't have done. And, you have to be around the right guys.
That's right.
And it doesn't change whether it's high school, minor league ball, whatever. Not everybody's going to make it. Not everybody has the same drive that you do, or guys can say they want it, but not everybody's going to have the same drive, and so when you really want something, you got to make a decision,
right?
And be held accountable for that. And so you need to have guys around you that will help you stay accountable.
Howard, I gotta, when I have guys like you in here, it comes with a great responsibility to the audience. So and I'll tell a story about Blaine Bishop when he came in. I listened, Blaine's on, he's got his radio show and so he's interviewed all the time today, or interviewing others. So I didn't want to give just another interview that looked just like the rest for Blaine. He walked in and I was like, Blaine, dude, you're 5'9", 5'10". You're one of the greatest at your position in the NFL, in NFL history. I was like, you shouldn't even have been there. So obviously somebody loved you a whole lot and was a great inspiration to push you. I was like, I want to know about that. And he just kind of grinned from ear to ear real big, right? So, dude, you're not 6'4", 6'5", but you had speed, power, the ultimate package in a player. You were a leader on and off the field. We've done our research around here, right? So, dude, I kind of want to know, how does a guy like you that's, because I was one of the smaller guys when I was coming up, and I'm bigger than you are.
Bigger than I am.
Absolutely. So, dude, tell me, first of all, folks, your circumstances don't define you, right? Your decisions do, your beliefs do. For you, tell me about the story about how the dream was a dream and how it started to become a reality.
So when I was a kid, my dad used to get sporting news, Baseball Digest, everything. We used to just pour over that stuff and look for ways, advice, anything that was in there that would help me. And I just remember reading about different ball players that, they tried to find out ways to improve at their overall game. It's hard to go into sport, especially like baseball, with just one strength. Mm-hmm. You have to find other ways to contribute. And when you're my size, you have to, experiment. You have to find out what can I do what am I good at that I can do better?
Right.
I could turn something into a real strength. And I could always run a little bit. I wasn't the fastest guy by any means, trust me. I had some bat speed. I never tried to hit the ball at the ballpark. I had a really good arm, so I could play any spot on the field. And
right.
That was a plus. But I tried to find out how I could be better. So if something in my game, was taken away, if let's say they walked me or, whatever. I mean, if they took that away from me, how could I still be valuable to the team? How could I bring value to myself? And so running and stealing bases became kind of a passion of mine. That's what I wanted to do a lot. And so it was easier for me to get on base than was it homers. So I'd rather take that mindset and try to make that into a real strength, while at the same time, I still had my other strengths, bat speed and whatnot, and I was a switch hitter. So all that stuff I tried to incorporate into my game as much as possible. Cause you know what happens, Nick, as soon as you get to a higher level, you're defined by what you can't do.
Wow.
You're
Yeah.
defined by your weaknesses. And that's kind of I didn't want that to be my story. So I really worked on my different parts of my game. I had success at different intervals at each of those, and you just try to put them all together and just be the best player you can be on a nightly basis. When I was in A ball, I learned a long time ago that in order to be successful, in order to be thought of as a quality professional ball player, offensively, you either drive a run in or you score a run every day. Eddie Brinkman was my manager in A-ball, and he taught me that. And Eddie would, keep making that point, stressing that point. You got to play every day if you want to be an everyday player, and you've got to be valuable to the team every day. And that's kind of what I tried to do.
I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more. First of all, there's so much gold that you just brought in there. And I was taking all these notes about this stuff. So tell me about your parents. You mentioned your dad a couple of times, right? So
yeah.
I know for my dad has thrown 10 million balls of batting practice to me. And it's one of the things that I still miss today. I might miss the game most, miss that part of the game most, is that the work, especially with dad in the off season,
Yeah.
doing those things. Tell me about how the relationship was with your folks.
Really good. My mom and dad would take me to the field after school. My younger brother and sister would be out there shagging.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my dad would throw to me, or hit ground balls to me, and I'd throw across the diamond and just do different things. Played a lot of shortstop. I pitched. I was pretty good at that stuff in Little League. And because of my birthday, I was always playing against some of the older kids. So I felt like I was immersed in it a little bit earlier, you know, to be forced to play better against older kids at the higher level.
Right.
And I think that helped me a lot. But my dad just, you know, instilled a work ethic in me. He was a Navy guy. Yeah. So, you know, you kind of learn, if you want to be good at something, you know, you got to be disciplined. You've got to spend time. You got to say no to some things. And, you know, many times I would say, no, I can't, my buddies, I can't go out tonight. You know, I got a game tomorrow, or I got something I got to be at tomorrow.
Right.
For baseball. And that was no problem. As long as you are consistent with that, you're not going to have an issue.
Were you always like a really good player, even as a young kid? You're always really good.
Always a good player.
Got it. So, refresh everybody's memory here. How long? Tell me about your minor league career. How long were you in minor leagues? And did you get? I should know this, and I do, but I'm like, did you come right out of high school? Did you go to college first?
Yeah, I went to. So back when I was drafted and signed, they had a secondary phase draft in January.
Okay, that's right.
They had it for about 5 or 6 years, I guess. Just looking back on Google, you know, I could see that stuff. But so I got drafted in the summer by the Yankees, didn't sign. Then I got drafted by the Tigers in January, did sign.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, hey, we think you can make our team in Lakeland, you know, you'll be close to home and everything. And I'm like, that sounds good to me. I just want to play.
Right.
And so, yeah, I played, I was in the minor leagues for 3 years and a day. But in between those seasons, which I think is very important, I went to winter ball. Okay. I went to winter ball for 3 or 4 years in a row.
Got it.
I played in Colombia, South America, where we communicated once a week by shortwave radio to my parents. It was crazy. And then Dominican, couple years. So
wow.
You just learn how to sacrifice that. And if it's something you want to do, just go get it, you know, do the best you can and go get it. And that was something that I did, you know, and I really believe those years of playing winter ball in between the seasons in the States, it was like getting 2 or 3 years of education at a higher level that you can't get otherwise.
Right.
And so that's kind of was a big development for me. So when I did go to, did get a chance to go to the big leagues, 82 is my first major league camp, and I was like the last guy cut. And not that I really had a chance to make the team, but
right.
I guess I impressed them pretty well. And then I got called up after one day in AAA.
Wow.
Yeah, they had some injuries. They called me up, and I played that next day. So, you just, you know, going into camp, I was comfortable facing AAA major league guys in winter ball. So if I go face those guys, you know, in spring training, it's no big deal.
Folks, the winter ball he's referring to is it's voluntary, right? It's not Correct. A part of your contract. It's something that, you know, guys do when they're wanting to make an impact, make a mark.
Yep.
You know, maybe they feel like they wanted people to see what more they could do. But it's like, it's a huge sacrifice because you guys are already gone 9-10 months out of the year playing here. And then you leave for the other 2 or 3 months. It's
like going to summer school. You know, if you're in class and you want to try to get a certain degree, you know, you go spend time, you know, away from that natural school year and you work on it. And that's kind of what winter ball is.
And it's, you know, when I was coming up, it paid okay. I don't know how it paid.
Yeah, it paid okay. I mean, it was way more money I ever made in my life at that time. But
that's right.
You know, but I was 18 years old when I signed and played my first 2 years in A-ball. My third year, I was in AA. Between my first and second year, that's when things really started to change. I had ability, but I wasn't sure anybody could see it. My manager, Fred Hatfield at the time, who's now deceased, but he would always tell me, hey, it's either be you or Marty Castillo next third baseman in Detroit. I'm like, really? I had 3 home runs in my first year. You know, I stole some bases and drove in some runs. So I was playing short. I played third. And so, I don't know, he kind of believed in me and the organization really was giving me a chance. And so my second year, I kind of took off and dominated the Florida State League. And then next year I went to AA and dominated after, about a month of adjusting there and
Yeah.
at a higher level. And, AA is a big level.
Even in like the AAA, AA sometimes seemed more competitive than AAA because a lot of times guys would go right from AA to the big league.
Yeah, a lot of prospects in AA. You get your guys that throw the hardest, and AAA was filled with more guys that were kind of back and forth between the big leagues, and where they were coming down maybe to work on one or two things, or they're free agents or something. But so going from A ball to AA, making that leap was huge, and then going back to winter ball after that season, and basically get myself lined up for the next year to get a chance to go to the big leagues.
So I mentioned before that I was always a better than average player, and got to play all 4 years in college, and then got to play 6 years in the minor leagues. For me, I wasn't a great goal setter, and here's what I mean by that. So I was just trying to get to professional baseball, which is where I got. Yeah. If I'd have had a better goal or a more refined goal, like get to the major leagues or play this position for this major league team, then who knows what would have happened. So let's talk a little bit for the younger generation out there. You don't win something, you don't win a championship on accident. Everything's on purpose. You know what I mean? The greatest in the world are the greatest by choice. They chose to be that. They believed they were going to do it, and then they went out and did the work and accomplished it. Talk to me about when you were coming out. Obviously, playing in the big leagues was your dream. Did you have a team you were chasing? Walk me through that, the mindset of what was going on in your mind as you're working your way through.
Well, it wasn't a specific team I wanted to play for or anything like that. But with regards to goals, I think you bring up a great point. You have to have some kind of goal setting mechanism in your life, whatever you're doing, if it's baseball or business, you have to be able to do that spiritually, your marriage, whatever. And we've all failed at that at different times, obviously, but it's you have to have that mindset that there's things you want to accomplish. Now, the trap is this. I would set goals. I would say, this is what I'd like to be able to do, at the end of this season, whether it's a number or a level or whatever. But it's more helpful to have a daily goal, to break it down even further. Because sometimes, and this as a baseball player, I mean, if you set down a goal of 100 RBIs and it's April or May, and you're off to a bad start or whatever, I mean, 100 RBIs looks like it's 100 miles away.
Yeah.
And so the easiest way to get back to it, and what is being taught more nowadays, which I like, is just focus on the game at hand, focus on the next pitch, and let the results be themselves. Sometimes we can get carried away. One of the goals, I would break it down. I'd say, okay, well, I want to drive in 100, like everybody else, right? And ever put a uniform on, and it was a hitter. So I was thinking, okay, well, to do that, I have to, drive in 20 runs a month, maybe, or if I'm going to hit home runs, maybe 5, every 100 at bats, something like that. So you just try to break things down, and then it's helpful just to then break it down even further and go game by game and just say, okay, this is what I want to do. And so that makes the goals very reachable. And at the end of the year, things kind of pile up and you end up having some decent numbers. And that way you can also, if you break through your goals early, the same opposite could happen. You could just get off to a great start. Exactly. And that 100 RBIs could be like, man, I can get that next week. But exactly. You just keep playing every day as hard as you can, and then let chips fall.
And it's difficult to do that too, because of, the mindset of overcoming failure, which in baseball, that's just a part of it. You know what I mean? That's my dad used to always say, he's like, Nick, the reason that we always wanted to push you into, that we love baseball and always wanted to push you into that game is because it prepares you for life as good or better than anything else.
Correct.
As you can do, knowing that the best in the world, literally the guy that just made almost $1 billion, $700 million in his contract, gets out 70% of the time.
Yep. Exactly right. And those guys, it's always going to be like that, and that should be comforting for younger players, because, you're going to struggle. Everybody struggles. That's the nature of the game itself. That's why it's very difficult to play it. And with that, it helps to just be honest with yourself and be humble and, you know, show some humility and respect to the game, because it's going to chew you up. And how you get through that period of, you know, distress is going to be how successful you become. And so the earlier you can accept it and deal with it and say, okay, well, be honest. Hey, look in the mirror. What do I have to work on? Am I good at this? Am I good at that? Did I miss my workout? Did I make my workout? All those things go into it. And so if you're always trying to be accountable to yourself first, and then accountable to your teammates, things will fall into place.
That's right. That's right. You mentioned the word. So I believe in momentum. I love momentum. And for me, like, I woke up today. So one, I was grateful for that. And then two, that's my first win of the day, right? So at the end, before most people even get started with breakfast, I like to have racked up 10 or 11 wins. You know what I mean? Because that's going to be the theme of the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That momentum, which
I've heard that mindset, and I love that, by the way.
Yes, sir. Well, it's crazy, because when you first wake up, I used to think about, oh man, these are all things that I got to fix or went wrong yesterday, or so on and so forth. And, you know, it took me becoming really strong in my faith to understand that, like, the gifts are the challenges, because that's when all growth and learning comes from, right? So, and at the end of the day, like, I've learned that I feel like the Lord trusts me with the challenges that he puts in front of me, which is, that's a compliment, right? So that I can overcome those and move on. And that taught me the biggest thing that, like, the big difference between quitters and finishers, because they look and smell really similar. You know what I mean? And but for me, like, I don't like quitters, but I love finishers. So, like, you know, I didn't quit playing the game of baseball. I was done. I was done. For me, it was when I played my last game, I left it all out there, and I felt like I was good. You know, and I look back at, there was so many more players that were bigger, stronger, and more talented than I was that didn't play as long because they quit.
Correct.
They might not have finished, right? So what was it that helped you keep, obviously you're a great, a great player your whole life, but you probably encountered some tough times and some rough circumstances, and some times where it was like, man, like, what am I doing?
Never wanted to quit, never wanted to stop playing, but I get frustrated sometimes at maybe a lack of success in a certain area of the game. I was never a really good defender, but I didn't stop trying to work at it. And I ended up being good enough to play a lot of shortstop in the big leagues. So I was trusted with that. I kind of earned that respect there. But I think in our game especially, there's so much competition out there, but you have to be your own competition. You have to be the one that makes that decision. It has to be a decision on your end, and not to be distracted by everything that's out there.
Right.
And I mean, we're on a podcast. I mean, this is out there. People can watch this. They can hear it. They can listen to it. There's social media. There's all kinds of distractions that are out there. Back in my day, in your day, probably, it was just women, girls.
That's right.
Before we got married, it was like, those are distractions in high school, especially your friends. There's distractions everywhere. So you have to learn how to kind of weave through that, and just make a decision. Most kids decide that they want to be successful. Well, that's great. Most everybody does.
Yeah.
But what is the roadmap that's going to get you there? Do you know what that looks like? To me, that is like one of the most important things we can pass on is, how does success look like? What does it look like?
Right.
You think that everybody, and it took me a while to learn this, like even the guys, the most successful business guys out there in the world have failed and gone bankrupt and lost everything and rebuilt it and lost it and rebuilt it.
That's right.
Because they're willing to risk it. They're willing to put themselves out there. And to me, that's where it starts. You have to be willing to go out there and be humiliated sometimes in order to make progress. And that is like, I think it's so key to anything that we want to do in life, and much less sports. Just the desire to like throw yourself out there. Hey, can you play here? Yes, I can play here. Can you hit? Yes, I can hit. so many kids I talk to now that I teach or whatever, and I'll ask them, hey, are you a good ball player? Can you hit? You got a good arm, this and that. And they're all like, sort of, this and that. I can tell they just haven't really worked at it. But it's like, come on, man. If you want to be good at something, go get it.
Somebody told me one time, and it's kind of stuck with me. And even when my son's baseball team, I always, one of the things I get them together, I'm like, guys, how you living?
Yeah.
And they always respond with unstoppable, right? And it's because somebody told me, it's like, Nick, I used to always be like, how you doing? I was like, good. And this person finally said, man, like, good, like, why not great?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what do you mean? They're like, dude, think about it. How many times do people greet you with how you doing and you reply back good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Right.
I'm good.
So let's just say 100,000 times a year, you're dialing in your subconscious that you're only good.
Right.
And I was like, okay. He said, dude, the most two powerful words in the English language are I am. Right. So when people say, how are you doing? Why not say, I am unstoppable, and say that 100,000 times and see how that changes how you go about it.
That's great. I might steal that one.
Oh man. It's, it's like, the subconsciously, or the average person makes like 30,000 or so decisions a day, yet we're only aware of a few thousand of those. Right. Yeah. So all those other things that are happening in our subconscious, it's your subconscious because it's below conscious. You're not aware of it. Like, it's coming from programs that you've just, of all the habits and decisions you made leading up to that. It's as a player, I was brought up kind of old school. Like, it was. I got run over at home plate, and when I was 17, both front teeth were laying on the ground. I had none left. I was seeing, my dad was just like, catch the one in the middle, And I stayed in that game, and I remember the coach of Belmont, who was watching the game and there to recruit, came up to me and he said, Nick, that was badass. Yeah. That you stayed in that game. Talk to me. I wanted you to help me educate some of the parents. Being a little bit old school, I was always told you're hurt or you're injured. Injured, you don't play. Hurt, you play. I tell the kids on Ethan's team, like, in the course of a season, on the mound, you might have all your pitches and everything's dialed in and perfect once or twice a year. You don't pitch those days, you dominate. All the days when you don't have your best stuff, that's when you pitch.
Yeah.
Right? So what's the difference between hurt and injured, especially for younger kids? And because, all these kids want to go get recruited, right? Well, right. Dude, if I have a nerve disorder and that was why I couldn't get paid, it was a red flag, right? So, when these kids are hurt all the time, if I'm picking two kids and one's healthy all the time, one's not, I'm going with the healthy one.
True.
Right?
It's true.
So talk to me about injured versus hurt.
Injured versus hurt. It's a very gray line when you're a kid because you want to play. Mm-hmm. So there's times where you risk playing even though you are injured. Okay. Maybe you're hurting, but you may have an injury, but you can play through it, you know? And I don't want to discourage a kid from trying to do that. Some kids just most kids today, I think they tend to be on the softer side as far as that goes.
Yeah.
There's more, I don't know whether it's because medicine's gotten so much better. There's so much, everybody's got something, you know, it seems like. And
that's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing. I mean, gosh, even you brought that up about, failing and struggling in this. That is the environment you are signing yourself up for. Mm-hmm. You are going to fail. You are going to struggle. You're going to be hurt. You're going to be sore, But the bottom line is, can you answer the bell? Can you play? Can that coach have faith in you that you're going to play and be good at when you are playing?
That's right.
It's not enough to say I'm hurt and go play and you limp out there and you kick the ball and you take a bad swing and your face is making all these faces. Just if you can't go out there and be successful, don't go out there.
That's right.
All right. But in order to have success, you've got to get out there to play.
Yeah.
So if you're, you have to be out there and put yourself in that environment to do that.
Right. You mentioned Kirk Gibbons earlier. Like, seriously, he was too hurt literally to play, and has what arguably one of the greatest moments in sports history. Michael Jordan's flu game today, they would probably give him a hard time because he might get others sick.
Yeah, he'd be in the load management program, because the guy's sick. But if they did that, then Chicago wouldn't have beaten Utah in that series. And it was just I have a lot of respect for guys that go out there and answer the bell. There's no way that guys are out there feeling great all the time. And that should not be the expectation if you're an athlete.
The Hit Streak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the Hit Lab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more. A lot of times, if a kid hadn't thrown in a while and they go out, like the first day you throw, you usually arm might be a little tender, or you worked out and you don't work out all the time. Like, you're going to get sore after you work out. And like,
Absolutely.
but that's when you keep on kind of pushing through. For me, I just always felt like, dude, nobody else is going to do the job as good as I can. So I got to be there.
That's right.
I got to be there for my teammates.
Yeah. My manager, Eddie Brinkman, I mentioned earlier in the podcast, he said, hey, if you want to be an everyday player, you got to play every day. You can't come out of the lineup. And I'm like, I said, I agree with you. And he goes, yeah, if you come out of the lineup, someone else goes in, and this is an A ball, so that no one knows what's going to happen, but somebody else comes in and plays, and I was just like you. I mean, there were players I played with that I thought, man, these guys are good.
Yeah.
They're way better than I am. But you got to figure out a way to compete in that environment, right?
That's right.
And so you use everything at your disposal. And when you're, my size, I don't have like tools that jump off the page. But when you watch me play, you go, okay, he's got a good arm. He can play the infield. He can make all the throws. He can run a little bit. He's got some power, bat speed. So I've got the tools, that show up when I play.
Yeah.
And if I'm not playing, no one's going to see it.
Man, well, it's, especially in the time you played, gosh, man, there was quite a few years there where when they said, hey, who's the best in the world today, top 5, your name was going to be in that list every single time. And it's got to be incredible. Tell me a little bit about the differences. You played for 2 world championship teams.
Yep.
So the 2 greatest teams on the planet in those years. What were the 2 things, not 2 things, what were a few things that kind of stuck out? All the teams you played on were great. Every player in the big leagues is great.
They are good.
You know what I mean? But there's obviously teams that come together, and that's what one of the hardest things to describe to folks is when you get to a certain level, everybody's great. So why do some teams lose 100 games and some teams win 100 games when the talent on the roster is pretty similar, Yeah. Talk to me about like what was some of the things that really stuck out on those 2 world championship teams that differed from the rest.
Well, number one is their desire to be the best every day, not lose. We're going to win a game.
A culture thing.
It's a culture thing.
Yeah.
People want to know what's the standard, right? The culture is the standard. You have to come to the ballpark every day, not right on time, but early. With a workman's mindset, and I had great veterans on that 84 Tiger team that I learned from, as I mentioned earlier, and they wanted to be the best. They wanted to dominate, and we dominated in 84. We came out of the gate 35-5. We were dominating. So we wanted to finish it off and get that championship, and we did. Then going to the Mets, the same thing. Their team was up and coming. They knew they had something special brewing, with Gooden and Strawberry and Keith Hernandez. And, Carter came over like a week after I got over there. And so 85, we were close. We won 98 games, I think, and came in second to St. Louis.
In today's world, you would have made the postseason.
We're the top wild card or whatever. Probably win your division. But,
that's right.
So you just play and you put yourself out there and you set goals. Like our goal in 86 was we're going to win this whole thing. 85 was a huge disappointment. We got eliminated like second to last day of the season. Played some really tough games with St. Louis that year. But 86 came around and we knew that was the goal. We're winning. Bottom line, we're going to win. And regardless of how we start, how it's going on, at the end of the season, we're going to be playing the best. And that's exactly what happened. We ended up going to that season and we were the best team. And we got pushed quite a bit in 86, but we ended up getting the job done.
There were, who were like, Who were some of the team? There were some. You played with some great guys in those years, especially like I'm very familiar with a lot of them on the '86 team. What are some moments and guys that like when you think back across the year, you're like, man, I still can't believe that happened. It's only because of that guy, like right there. You know what I'm saying? Like you were part of a lot of those things. What were some of the magical moments of that '86 season that stand out to you?
Wow. Well, in '86, Ray Knight was the third baseman every day. We were platooning in '85, but he got off to a great start and won that job basically. So it kind of put me in a different role where I was backing him up. I was backing up shortstop. Davey Johnson was our manager there. Great manager, great person. And he would find ways to use my ability. That's one thing I learned, that to be successful managing wise, you got to use all of your players. You just can't lean on one or two guys. You got to use them all. And so in baseball, you've got 25 men on your roster, and there's a handful of guys in AAA or AA, whatever, they're going to help out during that season. So, but Davey used the whole roster, and I was that 86 year. I was kind of the back end of that roster. And he would put me at shortstop. When Dwight Gooden pitched or Sid Fernandez pitched, these guys are like high strikeout, high fly ball ratio guys. The risk reward is on our side. If I'm playing out there, I get another bat in the lineup. You have, a guy who can play the position, although not like a, tremendous polished shortstop, but you make your offense better, especially in the National League when you didn't have the DH.
That's right.
And so that was a guy that kind of like presented that to me, and I had played shortstop a lot of my younger years, so I enjoyed it. I loved it. I played a little bit with Detroit when they wanted to give Tram a day off or something. But so you just being that and understand that was my role. Davey put me in situations as a pinch hitter late that he could take advantage. I'd face a closer, the guys that throw hard. And, my bat speed, I could match it. So, he put me in spots where success was probably a little bit more in my favor than normal. And so I learned that, and I'd probably say talking to Keith Hernandez and seeing him prepare every day, when we were talking earlier about watching players and seeing what makes them tick and how they're successful, Keith was like a walking baseball encyclopedia, and defensively, there was none better than him that I ever saw at his position, especially. And he was like, he would make things happen defensively. Everybody thought of him as a great hitter, but defensively, he made things happen.
Right.
We'd have a first and second scenario, and it's a one-run game or a tie game or whatever. And we'd meet at the mound and we'd talk about what we're going to do, and he'd say, "HoJo, you stay at third. He's going to bunt this ball. I'm coming to you, and we're going to get double play." And I'm like, okay, I'll be ready. So in my mind, I knew exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it would happen just the way he said. And it was incredible. So I learned that you could manipulate scenarios, if you knew what you were doing, first of all, and you just let it happen. And so that was a big lesson for me.
You mentioned in the '86 team, kind of going with what we talked about with goals and such. Again, as a player for me, I just was trying to get past college baseball to the professional ranks. And then once I got there, I had some amazing people that cared for me, and I probably stayed there longer than I should have. And I probably got promoted a couple of times that I should, but it was because people believed in me. And I had great relationships with those. And a big reason that I got to play is because the one thing I did figure out, I was like, the pitcher gets to pick a lot of things. They get to pick the uniform we wear a lot of times, or the jersey. They get to pick the catcher that plays, and that was my position.
Pick the music in the locker room.
Pick the music in the locker room. That's right. So like for me, I got to play a lot just because there was 2 or 3 guys that only wanted to throw to me when the time came. And that was a great thing. But again, you guys said in '86, you made the decision to win it all.
Yeah.
And so the best shots in the world are the ones that they can hit the smallest targets. You know what I mean? And literally, you probably used a GPS coming over here today.
Yeah, I did.
If you had just typed in Nashville, Tennessee, we don't know where you would have ended up.
No.
But with the GPS, you type in an exact location, then it's going to tell you all the roadmap to get there, even how long it's going to take you to get there. if life happens, it'll reroute you. It'll say, this is your new route. This is your new time of arrival, and so on and so forth. So like the more and more we use the GPS, I was like, my son was real young, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, dude, like, I think this is how you run life. It's, you know what I mean, just like a GPS. So let me ask you this. What were some of the things that that I don't think I couldn't find it. You may have mentioned it before. What were some of the things you did in the off season that really separated you from everybody else?
Well, as a younger player, going to winter ball separated me because a lot of guys didn't really care to go, or they went one time and that was it because they didn't like it because it's a difficult existence down there.
Yeah.
That and just putting the work in and just trying to take something maybe that's good or an ability and make it better.
Right.
You know, how can I improve this part of my game? I was good at looking in the mirror, maybe to my fault, maybe sometimes too much. You know, I never thought of myself as being a superstar or anything like that. I just thought of myself as a player that was happy to be on the team, first of all, regardless, and always had something to prove. And that's kind of the way I lived my life back then. Was I had something to prove, and very humble. You know, just because that's what my dad stressed that to me. The veterans along the way all stressed that to me as well. Like, hey, you think it's hard to get here. The hard part's staying here. You know, it's easy to get here. So when you think of it in those terms, you're like, oh man. And then when you look at the best players in the world and knowing how often they are struggling, I don't remember exactly when this happened, but we used to talk about this when I was coach with the Texas Rangers system about, they would talk to the best hitters in the world, the top 10 or whatever. And they say, okay, out of the 700 times that you walk up to the plate to bat, how many times out of that 700 times do you feel good? And how often do you feel lousy or not so great? And the answers were off the charts, like maybe 200 times, I felt great. And this is like, I'm like, dang it, man, that's not fair.
Yeah.
These guys go up there 200 times and feel good. They feel bad 500 times or 400 times, and for me, I go up there, every at bat is a struggle. Every at bat is a grind, but you have to embrace that. It's like, maybe it gets better. It does get better in some ways. You're a little smarter.
Yeah.
But it's always going to be that way. I get asked a lot, who's your toughest pitcher? Well, all of them, they're all, they're all nasty.
They were all great, right?
They're all great. They get guys out and they get me out, but I may have a little success off of some of them. Some I don't know why, but I did. But just having that mindset that, the game is difficult and you can't stop. There's always going to be somebody, wanting your job, whatever level you're at. If you're in the big leagues, somebody's in AAA. When I got to the big leagues, I wanted that guy's job. I wanted to be that, so there's always people pushing you and trying to get you, and which is fine. That's the environment. If you can't handle that, then you're in the wrong business.
So, there's a lot of, one of the hardest transitions of my life was going from player to something else.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Reinventing myself, as what's now a businessman. Right. So, dude, you've gone out and you're kicking ass in the business space and doing all kinds of great things, giving back to the community, and so on and so forth. What is, talk to me a little bit about the life lessons you learned in baseball and even how you're applying those to the business.
Well, when I was done playing, I didn't think I wanted to be a coach, but I went into coaching, went into pro scouting first with the Mets, and then became a coach, hitting coach, and I managed a couple of years in the minor leagues with the Mets, and finally got to the big leagues as a hitting coach. But that was my goal. I wanted to coach the best. Once I was done playing, I was like, hey, what am I going to do? What do I want to do? I really wanted to be around. I wanted to coach the best players. It wasn't just to get a job or expectations or anything kind of given to me. It's like, I'll work my way up the ladder. I don't care. But I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could and coach and teach the best in the world. And so I ended up doing that and accomplishing that. After I got out of the game as a coach, 2019 was my last year.
Okay.
We had already gotten Showtime Sports Academy under our belt, so we were starting out from zero because it was not doing well. We turned it around. My son turned around. I shouldn't say we, he did.
He's done a great job.
Yeah, Glenn's done a great job. He's very, very smart, way smarter than I was. Good math kid, just very disciplined. Played the game the right way. Just goes about life the right way. And so, I went in, started coaching, did some lessons here and there during COVID, and realized I liked it. At first I wasn't sure I wanted to be in the cage because I'd been in the cage my whole life.
Yeah.
But the more I was around it and the more I was around kids, I started to see the things that were out there that we all see nowadays on the internet that were like, man, how has this even got anybody with viewing this crap? There's so much out there.
Yeah.
It's just crap.
It's a lot of noise.
It's a lot of noise out there, and there's too much. And so I kind of felt like it was, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it the right way. And I want to educate kids, but I want to educate parents as well because they have to sift through it all. We didn't have that when I was playing. And so it was just, that became like a focus of mine. I said, I'm going to teach, and I'm going to let the results dictate whether or not I was successful or not. I'm not going to say you have to do it this way, you got to do it that way. I'll take whatever you do well, and we're going to make it great. Okay?
That's right.
As best we can. And that's something that I love doing, and I like teaching. And so now I like spending time in, and I see it with major league guys and minor league guys. Guys will come in and work out at Showtime, and I'm like watching them. And I'm thinking to myself, a little bit of adjustment here and there. I go to spring training with the Mets, and I was down there last year for a week and watching guys up close, and I'm just watching. And, the big league game's a different game.
Yeah.
It's a different animal than amateur baseball, college baseball. Talk about the best of the best. These guys are freak athletes, first of all. They can do things that 99% of the population can't do.
Right.
And so you have to understand that going in, that these guys are different and they're not going to be the best. I used to hear that all the time. They go, do you think the guys in the big leagues are the best guys with the best swings? And the answer is no, they're not. But they know what they can do, and they make that great, and then they take the weaknesses they do and they try to make that better or camouflage it somehow.
Yeah.
And I learned how to do that as a player, and then as a coach, I do the same thing. And so I'll teach young kids, basic things about the swing and hitting and, the mindset that they got to have. And for an example, when it comes to switch hitting, I was a switch hitter. I taught my son how to switch hit, so I'm not just making it up.
My son's a switch hitter, so let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah,
This is going to help him out a ton.
Well, the biggest thing for me is it's all mental.
Okay.
It's mindset. And what I mean by that is not the mindset that you have as a hitter necessarily, but it's the mindset that the people around you have. Whether it's your parents, number one, and number two, maybe number 1A would be your coaches that are around you. There's a lot of coaches that don't want kids switch hitting. Why? Because it's a normal, natural, weak side that is going to struggle for a vast part of the season when you're learning how to do it, right? The reward is on the back end, but you got to go through it first, right? And so a lot of coaches, a lot of parents, sad to say, don't want to have to deal with that because we live in a society that, you're great, you're this, you're that, you got to compete and you got to fight and you're going to struggle in this game of baseball. And to say, well, what you're doing now as a 10-year-old in Little League or travel ball, you're going to do that your whole life it's just not realistic.
Right.
And you're going to get slapped up with that reality at some point in your life, and probably sooner than later.
Right.
And if you're going to throw in switch hitting, I mean, you taught your son switch hits. My son did. We teach kids as much as possible that they can do it.
Right.
But they usually get run out of town by the coaches in their middle school team or whatever the travel program that they end up with, or their high school coaches or their friends, because their friends aren't doing it. Their friends aren't having success. So it's easy for them to say, you should just be good at one side, just do. And I get that mindset, but look, man, everything you do, and I tell them, I say, look, everything you do between now, and I don't care how old they are, 10, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, between now and you're going into your junior, senior year, all of it is just practice. It's glorified practice. So don't be afraid to go to your, on your travel team and tell the coach you want to switch it. You want to take BP this way in practice. And then in a game, you want to start mixing in some at-bats that way. And pick the spots that, if you strike out, it's not going to cost your team the game necessarily. But do it where it's okay. And then the rest of your game, you go back to where you normally are. If you're natural right, hit left once a game for a while and then go back and hit right. And that's fine.
I like that.
Yeah. Just put yourself out there and do it, and just kind of try to stay with it.
The Hit Streak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com. Even, with my son, because I didn't switch yet, and but I always kind of wish that I did. And even with my son, it's, in practice, it's always like, dude, having a switcher is like having two players, in my opinion, when it comes to BP at least, because they got to get the same amount of swings from both sides. And anytime anybody ever asks a question about like that, I'm like, all right, well, just put yourself in this situation. So Ethan's facing a lefty, and he's hitting on it's his natural side, but it's the side he just picked up a few years ago on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
I'm like, game's on the line. Like, you're not going to sit there and be like, man, I wish he'd have taken that BP, that extra BP. You know what I mean? But at the same time, would he have got the game-winning hit left-handed versus strikeout right-handed? Who knows? But it's 12-year-old baseball.
Yeah.
That's the time to figure that out.
It's development.
Absolutely.
You have to have that mental toughness to do that. And I've taught kids who are in high school that don't switch hit now we worked on it for a couple of years, and it was good. Mm-hmm. Could hit a breaking ball from the offside.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is going to be good. If you stay with it. But unfortunately with social media, the false assumption is that people are watching you on a daily, day-to-day basis. They are not.
Right.
They are not.
My dad said, don't flatter yourself.
Don't flatter yourself. The coaches are not seeking you out on the internet. Just go be the best player you can. They will see you, because in high school, you're going to face, good players, and there's going to be colleges there. There's going to be scouts there. That's when you really want to try to show out,
Right.
But when you're playing young travel ball, when you're like 12, 13 years old, man, give it a try. It's not going to kill you. It's going to make you better, actually, regardless.
That's right.
If you do give it up, you're going to be better on your normal side.
That's right. I wanted to ask you too, because you're living a dream of mine, and that is you literally work in a place where you get to work with your son, right?
Yes.
So that's got to be like one of the greatest accomplishments in your life. But out of all the stuff you've done, that's probably something you're most proud of.
Yeah, it is. It is. Probably something I don't mention enough. I mean, he knows how I feel about it, but I don't mention that enough. My wife and I couldn't be more proud of all of our kids, right? They're all successful, and they have great spouses and kids and stuff. And, just to be able to go to work with my son or pick up the phone and, discuss a business thing or a hitter or whatever, that's the spice of life.
That's right. That's right. And it's got to be getting to watch him succeed on a daily basis in the professional ranks of business and everything else. That's got to be awesome. Because that's a big old spot y'all got.
It is a big spot, and there's big bills that come with it.
That's right.
But we're doing well, and not to knock on wood, we work hard at it, and we try to provide an atmosphere, in a culture over there that's welcoming, and people enjoy it.
Well, let me ask you this. So, there is a buddy of mine. We were talking, and he's actually gone off and said this a lot out in keynotes and everything else. But we were talking about just how a lot of people that we run across don't act. Everybody wants, like you said, everybody wants to make six figures. Everybody wants to make it to the big leagues. Everybody wants to be successful, but not everybody wants to do what it takes to get there. And there was two things that really stuck out. One, Hunter Bledsoe is a sports agent, and he told me a story. He wears a bracelet that says "Into the Storm." And one day, I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh, that's he's like, so." Bison, He said, bison run into the storm, cattle run away from the storm. He said, who do you think spends the least amount of time in the storm? Thought about it for a minute. I was like, well, I guess the bison do because they're running through it rather than with it. He was like, that's what the bracelet's about. You run into the storm, you know, and he's like, that's where a lot of your heroes are. And then the other thing was we were talking about just hard work and how hard work's a big piece of it. And you got to have that, but it has to be some intelligence involved. And I was like, okay, well, what do you mean? He said, well, like, you don't think garbage men work hard? I was like, well, yeah. He's like, but they don't make the money that they probably want to make. And nothing against garbage men, but there's a lot of professions like that are extremely hard work, blue collar, where they don't get paid a lot. So there's a shift in, like, first, I think the first skill you learn is, can you work hard, right? But then there's a shift that starts to happen where you have to have your mind has to work as hard as your body does, right? And how much time you're spending. So can you talk a little bit about that, like how it was for you? And because again, we didn't have all this stuff when you were coming up and I was coming up.
We didn't have the technology for sure.
That's right.
That's out there now.
And I mean, we couldn't pause a guy's swing. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it was blurry television. And it was live. And even if you taped it with a VCR, you could hit pause if you ever got it right, and you still couldn't tell anything.
No, you couldn't. It was tough. I remember those days well. I saw VCR tapes at home of my swing, of minor league guys' swings. It's amazing. You can't see much on those, but you know, I think we lived when I grew up, when you grew up. I don't know how old you are, Nick.
43. I should have let you guess first. That'd have been fun.
So things were just starting out with you, right? With technology.
You know, I was like, we can't find a game we played on TV, but we can't find any of those recordings.
No recordings.
Like I remember I started my Facebook profile from the road on a minor league. I think it was in 2003 on the minor league. So I was like right before the big internet boom. Dad used to listen to my games on internet broadcast audio only. When I was playing. So I was right before it. Like my son, my wife's never seen me play. And I'd give anything to have a little bit of that footage.
I know. It's cool to see it, be able to go back and see that stuff. But yeah, I think technology, the word is now, as it compared to back then, there's so much of it that, and it's just like statistics, what they always say, you know, is you can make stats say anything you want.
Right.
Well, you can make technology the same way. You can make it say certain things. And and the reason I say that is because I don't want to be guided 100% by technology. You know, we still have a brain in our eyes, and our gut tells us certain things. Now, I might be wrong, but I'm willing to learn and be educated, you know.
That's right.
But I don't want to just live by the tech, and I don't want to live by short clips of videos. I look for, whenever I watch a hitter, if I see a hitter on social media that I really like, and there's a point that I really want to make with a kid, that's where my mind goes. And I want to take that, and I want to break it down so that when I am with that kid or with that parent, you know, I can show them, right? This is what we're trying to get to. They didn't get here overnight. It takes a long time, but this is the end goal. But yeah, just being able to be out there. With the ability now to search, like they have a system in the major leagues now, and I don't know if they have it in the minor leagues, but it's called BATS. In the BATS system, it's probably something completely different now, but you could go in, any player could go in and research their name for like the last 10 years and put them against whatever pitcher they want, or any generic right-hander or left-hander, any situation they want, any count they want, and every at bat that ever's happened in the major leagues would pop up on there, and they'd be able to see maybe the 10 times that they hit against this guy in a 2-1 count or 3-2 count. And you'd be able to see all these things. And so
what pitch he threw,
the result. You know, when I was a hitting coach, I'd cycle through that constantly, but I was watching pitchers.
Right.
And, you know, instead of just watching their stuff, I would go through and I'd find out the most important details I could about them in the most high leverage situations, so that when I was telling hitters, you know, what they expect or what they probably are going to get, or how the pitcher's is working them, you know, I would have those answers basically for them. That you don't have that in the amateur system right now. It's just all like, do it this way, do it that way, play to the number. the pop time or the exit velocity.
Right.
But they don't tell you how to get those things.
Mm.
They don't tell you pitchers supply most of your power anyway.
Right.
They don't tell you that stuff. But how to get better at things in your game, whether it's big or little, you can find information out there. And I look at different things. But there's no magic bullet to it. Some things work, some things don't.
Right. That's right. Sometimes you just got to put in the work and think and figure it out. Right.
Exactly. I can only lead a kid so much. A parent can only lead their kids so much. It has to come from within.
Right.
So I think accepting failure, accepting the fact that it is difficult, I think those are like key cornerstones of that.
Absolutely. Folks, we're hanging out with the great former MLB player, Howard Johnson, 2-time world champion and 3-time 30-30 club member. As we bring this sucker to the end right here, right? So a couple of quick questions for you just for fun. I don't know if you're a big reader or not. I didn't ask you before. But are there any books that stand out that you would recommend to the audience as far as things that helped you along the way?
Well, I think along the way, the Ted Williams book, hitting 400, those things are priceless. You can go back. I have a copy at home. Mm-hmm. I look at it periodically, just look at the pictures because everything in there is still relevant today.
He kind of got it when nobody else did.
Yeah, he did. He was kind of ahead of everybody, being able to break it down, other books. I mean, I'm a believer in Christ, so the Bible is a big one. I don't read it enough. I'll be honest with you there. I wish I did.
Well, they took it off the bestseller list because nobody could beat it. No, nobody could beat it. Yeah, that's why they had to remove it.
That's a good reason.
Absolutely, yes. That's right. More people do need to read it. Me too. We all need to read it more. Yes, sir. Keep going.
Oh man.
Let me ask you this: what about
baseball? When I was a kid, Baseball Digest.
Baseball Digest. Oh, absolutely.
Was the Bible for me.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I used to read that every week it came out.
That's right. What's your favorite? Back then, all the baseball movies were on repeat on the buses and everything else.
Yeah.
We all love the great baseball movies. What are your favorite? Your top 3 baseball movies, if you have them off the top of your head.
So I'd probably say The Natural.
Yep. Might
be number 1. Major League, the first one.
Yeah.
Probably number 2. Number 3, maybe Bull Durham. I don't know. I know I'm missing a bunch because when you're on the spot thinking about it, you can't name them. But yeah, probably those 3. I mean, if I'm flipping around and I see that up there, I'm going to either record it or I'm going to watch it.
That's right. Howard, is there, and last but not least, is there anything, any future plans you guys have for the Showtime or the HoJo Elite Baseball program? What are some business goals you guys have or structural goals for the future?
Well, we're expanding. I mean, we're getting bigger. We have a lot of kids that come through there, a lot of families.
How many teams do you guys have?
We have 17.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot, which is great. We jumped up big this last year.
Ranging from what age groups?
We have 8U.
8U?
Going through 17.
Wow.
And I coached our 17s last fall, and I'll do them for this summer.
How cool is that?
It's fun, man. I really enjoy it. It's a level that I feel that I can impact in a way, teach them what's important and really what isn't. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, and I don't want to sound like an old man, but social media stuff, it's important, but it's not everything.
Sure. It's a tool. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's a tool. You can't substitute that for hard work. Cage time. One thing my dad taught me when I was little was, to be able to practice the game by yourself is tantamount to anything. Every great accomplishment starts out with desire. So you have to start out with desire first. And then when you have that, then you can formulate a plan. So I used to go after school. There was an old Catholic school that was kind of near my house. I used to ride my bike over, and they had the big tennis wall. So they had the wall, they had the line like tennis.
That's right.
And you could hit balls, So what I used to do is I used to throw balls against it and get ground balls that way on my own. So I was working on my arm speed, throwing it as hard as I could against that wall, getting as many difficult ground balls I could create off of it. I played racquetball.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love
handed,
racquetball.
by myself, just playing, just trying to improve, So being able to practice by yourself to me is like the cornerstone of it all.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The Hit Streak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial. Folks, we're hanging with former Major League great Howard Johnson. Check him out on Instagram at HoJo20. Also at HoJo Baseball TN on Instagram. And that's the HoJo Elite Baseball organization. That's their Instagram right there. And as well as check them out online. Howard, man, is there anything else that you'd like to add as we bring this sucker to a close, brother?
No, Nick, it's a pleasure to be here, to get a chance to talk. The game that I love is provided for my family, and talk about Showtime a little bit and HoJo Baseball, and just we're grateful that we live in this Nashville area. It's a great area. It's beautiful. People are awesome. And so, thanks again.
Well, man, it's, I gotta say, like, I had not met you before today, and everybody knows the name, you know what I mean? But, and playing against your teams all the time, it's just so great to hear that you're not just the name behind it. You're actually doing it. You're on the field coaching the 17U team. Like, how cool is that for those kids? And even more importantly, the guys on the other side of the field, the coach that gets to walk out and shake your hand at home plate before every game. Dude, that's cool, man.
Well, I appreciate that. Wherever I'm coaching or around, I try to be available to the kids on the team. I don't actively go out and try to teach another kid that's not mine, or go get another kid off a team or whatever. We just do our thing. And, if kids want to come over and see what we're about, test us out or whatever, they can do that. We love that. So we're more about, let us earn your trust.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. Well, folks, if, again, guys, like when he played, he came up, it was almost like a mythological figure, man. 30, still in 30 bags, hitting 30 homers back then. Nobody did that. They still don't do it very often.
No, they don't. They don't do it. Now it's a little easier though with the rule changes.
That's right.
They've made the stolen base almost too easy.
That's right.
When you can't throw to first base more than twice, that's bad.
That's right. I agree with you 100% on that. But man, like, seriously, thanks so much for the hang today. This has been an honor and a pleasure, and a great time. And man, you brought tons of value to the audience today as well.
Well, I appreciate it, Nick. So it's a pleasure. And anytime we want to do it again, we can do it.
Well, folks, we've been hanging out with former Major League great, 2-time world champion, and 3-time member of the 30-30 Club, Howard Johnson. You know him as HoJo. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hit Streak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.